record.
Okay, so if you could just quickly introduce yourself for the listeners who haven't met you yet.
My name's David Sandhu. I'm from Prince Rupert, BC, Canada, and we do real estate and other things.
Okay, and what would the other things be there?
We do a lot of investments like in stocks, and we do a lot of sports betting, which is a little bit different, unique way of investing. And it's all for a greater good, which is let's buy more real estate.
Right, fair enough. Fair enough.
That's what we like to hear. I've never heard of betting as a traditional investment form, but as long as it goes back into real estate, those winnings, then I guess we're okay.
And I guess as long as it's done sort of and I'm imagining if you're mentioning it publicly, it's obviously done in an above board manner.
We do, yes, and I just
we're not doing like Gangs of New York real estate financing.
No,
here, right?
No, it is pretty unique because everything over there is in Canada. Here we don't pay any taxes on our winnings, so everything that we earn as a sports bettor it's all net. And last year we did like 450 grand, so that was all net, and,
wow.
and that was just one portion of it. And stocks was huge. We did a million just in June. I netted $1 million in June in options stock, and that we just went and bought like 8 more properties, and now we're gonna just do we buy it cash, and now we just go and get a little bit of our money back because it's discounted at 35-40%. And so the banks don't know that. We go get our own appraisals, and they come back to much different than the people that were selling it, because they don't understand enough from they're from a little bit bigger city, and then they don't understand the market here. There's only so much room, and we're a port city, and we're a big player in the commodities market for the world trade.
Right. So then I guess your primary objective is to have as many income streams as you can, take that capital and reinvest it in your local community.
Absolutely. We deserve to get more franchises. We don't have a bowling alley. Where's our IHOP, right? French pancakes year round. It's more so like my kids like it. So if we can access to things of that nature, we can try to bring it. So that's where my venturing company comes in. And it's called Tilt Ventures. Tilt is just because we've been playing poker, going down to the World Series and doing all that for so it's just the ups and downs. The ups and downs.
Yeah. So okay, and then when you talk about on the venture side, franchises, et cetera, is your objective here to bring those franchises into your municipality?
Absolutely, 100%. And then that way I can eat more from the city side.
Yeah. Okay.
So now we're into sales, right? So now the more I can eat from my city, because a lot of these guys get paid 150, 200 grand a year, but then there's nowhere to spend it in town. We got Tim Hortons, we got one McDonald's, we got a Subway, but that's it.
And does that ultimately result in people getting into trouble, or is it just there's a massive savings rate in people within your municipality?
It's just, I think everyone's just so busy. No one understands about investing, and they think it's bigger corporations, that's it. We can only either have bigger corps or nothing, but they don't understand that a franchise can be a mom and pop shop because it's going to be owned by a local guy, and we're going to hire at different rates because of inflation. And so people don't want to work because they're getting paid EI, they're getting paid, the government's just giving them money, right? And so we got a port here that pays $60 an hour. They get a couple of days there, and they're like, okay, we're worth 60 now. No one, and all the dishwashers, the people that are doing the dishwashing, the bus, there's no more of them because all the people have been taken, and now it's I worked at these companies for 11 years, and one of them in 5 years for another, and I just resigned in May and started my company. But I've been investing into real estate for about 12 years now, and I've been housing dozens of people for 12 years now in town, and everything's invested in town.
Awesome.
What franchises or large multinational restaurant chains would you have in a place like Prince Rupert? Just so I can
like an A&W, get a Boston Pizza, IHOP, and it's and I've been in talks with A&W since 2017. I wanted to do it, but we just didn't have the funds. But then, we had a boom here, and we were already pretty good with the housing, and everything appreciated a crazy amount. So now we have the access, and now we're gonna, I have a ton of guys working for my company now, and we have a housing company, Tilt Housing, Tilt Contracting, Tilt Ventures, and now we're just gonna branch off that. And there's tons of people with money in town, but they don't understand like how to invest it. They just give it away and look for like a 7% return. And in stocks, I do stock options, and I'm like, guys, I just had a 7,400% return on one of my on like 50 calls on 50 contracts, and I'm like, guys, we can do more stuff out here. So I feel like I've lost so much to getting to this point, like in monetary value. I've lost a ton of money, and I understand a little bit outside the box, and we just investing in general, and but just trying to make it a little bit more fun, because it's like I'm at home with my 21-month-old boy every day. We got nothing to do. I bought a building in town. I'm making it into my office, but I'm doing like a skateboard ramp downstairs. Upstairs is gonna be like TVs, lounge, bar, basketball court outside. Like that's just because there's nothing to So I went and bought a building to do it, and I already had land there next to it, and then I owned the house there, and so it's all commercial property. So we're just gonna do it ourselves, and the money comes from stocks and rentals and sports.
Right. Cool.
Love it. Okay, so stocks and rentals we hear, but sports is not one. I love that. So before we get too far into what you're doing now, I'd like to rewind, because I think this is something that the listeners love. Obviously, you're killing it right now. You've got the buildings, you've got the skateboard park, and your office, all that.
The wrap. We're gonna do the wrap down there. Yes.
Walk us back how did you get in? What was the first investment? What was the first real estate piece of property that you had? How did that deal go? And then how did you get to where you are now?
Okay, so like I worked quite a bit. Like I had 4 jobs, 10 plus years ago. I had 4 jobs where in the morning I'd go shrimping with my father-in-law. He wasn't my father-in-law at the time, but he brought me on board on his boat, and we go every morning from like 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then I'd go home, I'd shower, and then I'd go offload trucks at different restaurants. And then I'd go work at my mom's restaurant, which she only had like 20% of. And so I do deliveries and wash dishes there for no pay, but it's for my mom, right? And so those would be the 3 jobs. And then we'd get off at like 1 a.m. and we had like one of the poker games, and that would be number 4. And so we've been doing this for a long time, and we've been playing cards and taking risks, right? We've been taking like exponential risks. People always call me lucky, but then it's like, guys, we take a lot more risk. Like some games I have like 20 grand on it on a basketball game. It's like, that's risk. And how much risk do other people take? So we've been taking risk for a long time. And the thing is, anytime I had cash back then, whether it was through poker and work, I'd buy a house. I put enough down for a rental. So I'd get two more incomes. Back then it'd be like $500 for a 2-bedroom downstairs. Upstairs would be like $750. I'd be paying the hydro for.
And what are you paying for a house? Like what did that first house cost?
That cost me 130 grand. And
what's that worth today?
But I sold it. It's worth like about 450.
Right. Okay.
450. Yeah, I sold it earlier.
10 years, over 10 years.
Yeah, over that was 12 years ago. Over 12 years, and it's worth 450 today. And I only put in the initial 30 grand that I had from hustling. And so we did it.
Why'd you sell that deal? Like as an example, were you just getting rid of your to get bigger buildings, or?
I was about to move out of town in January. We sold more than one place in January, and we were gonna leave. I was gonna go to Kelowna. Let's buy a nice property on the beach. Okay, we're good. And then something switched, and then I went and there was a dormant 4 townhouses, 4 3-bedroom townhouses. They were dormant for like 4 years, and we're small. We're a pretty small town. We're like only like 15,000 people, and housing is very scarce here. And so I talked to, I knew who owned it, and I talked to them, and I got a smoking deal for 620 grand. And I just made that in stock, so I paid the lady cash. And I quit my job in May, but I made the money in June. So it was pretty.
Right? Been pretty classic luck. Yeah.
Yeah, but we've been like, I was down 80% on these calls since January. So, life was tough for my wife, for everybody at home, because they don't know that I just invested a ton of money, 150 grand, and just do call options on GME and AMC. Then like, so, and I'm down 80% in 2 months. So I'm down to like, they're worth like maybe 20 grand. And so I double dip a little bit. And then finally in June, we hit 750 grand in one day. It was the US. So that was really good. And
Did you
then
fully exit at that point?
what's that?
You exit 100% at that point, or
No, I didn't. The next day we lost 200 grand back. But
Wow.
risk. Yeah. So, but then we ended up making close to like $1 million on it, but we spent that already in properties in town. Now we're just gonna do it again. Already doing it again. So we're looking for another property in town to maybe make into a franchise or get a building. The government, if I buy one of these properties, the government will renovate it for me if I make it into nice offices or something, and then I can just take the appreciated amount back in cash. And it's like they're putting 100% into it. So like, that's
When
kind
you
of a
say
good
they're-
idea.
when you say they're gonna put that capital expenditure in,
Grants.
because they're gonna be a tenant, there's grant programs. Is that
Yeah, there's grants programs, and one of the councilmen kind of talked to me. He's like, yeah, we can do this, and I know this because we have one really like pristine location in our waterfront where it's just like a rundown building. The city somehow found $4 million to put into it, but they're making it into a brewery for this company, great company, but they're charging only 54 grand a year. It's like, guys, how business stupid are you?
right?
And I'm like, what? Make me a Moxie's $4 million? Like, come on, guys, into a brewery that's like you're only charging 54 grand. It's like, guys, you guys are so dumb.
On the franchise, when you talk about like the commercial real estate of it, like like a Moxie's or whatever, you're like, if you're talking a national tenant like that, does your area hit like the criteria that most of these retail tenants need? Like, I think an A&W you might, based on that. But
Well, the thing is that we have such good paying jobs.
Right.
Are the paying jobs in town, like the one McDonald's here, I knew I know the owner. He flipped it and has 3 more in Calgary now. He's like a 35-year-old guy, and I'm like, you just flipped this, made $1 million off of it. I'm like, yo, this guy's flipping franchises. We can flip franchises. And so it's like, I want to flip a franchise. We'll bring a franchise, and then I'll sell the whole thing, franchise and build it. And
yeah, actually,
now
I actually have a plaza owner client in our area, like in northern GTA, who does the same thing. He'll basically put a franchise in a plaza, anchor tenant it. He'll sell the restaurant, and then he'll keep the plaza.
And so it's cool, but we want to get into hotels too. So there's one lady that owns four of the 8 that we have in town here, and she really likes me. So she's kind of holding off, and my friends are looking to invest now. So we're like, yo, let's just get some hotels. So we're gonna look at doing this kind of things, and we're gonna invest back into the city because people work so hard in town. I know because I did it, and we don't have no amenities. And our cities just they suck.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think that was sort of like your primary objective, is to really talk about what made you impassioned to be investing back in the community, and what's your vision for doing it? Like, why do you feel compelled to do this? You obviously don't owe the municipality anything, and as you mentioned, you might have even been leaving, right?
Yeah. So basically, it was like, my kids like cringe pancakes, and you need an IHOP to get cringe pancakes year round. So let's get let's get an IHOP. So it's basically like, well, it'd be good for the family, but it's also good for the town. And there's money being made. People are going to be working at like $25 an hour minimum, right? Because we got to go down the Fort Mac route. We got all these bigger corporations. We can't compete with their $50 wages. We've got to do something. We can't give them 15, but we got to do something. So we got to start off and bring our wages up. So my company offers minimum $20 an hour right now. And it's going to be more than that as this, I get this everything together, but it's coming. It's definitely coming together
with a local labor economy that's paying $60 an hour, right?
Exactly. And it's like, these guys, it's because we're a port city. We're three days closer to the Asian markets. And it's like, the big guys are thinking, how do we get our stuff there quicker? How do we take their resources faster? And they need these key locations. It's like how Taiwan is such a key location to China.
Right.
It's for war. That's a really, really key location. It's the same way as Prince Rupert is for the ports.
So unless global shipping disappears, Prince Rupert's not going anywhere, right?
It's not going anywhere. And these people are, I know global shipping right now it's actually like a weird,
It's a bit of a mess.
standstill. It's a mess right now. It's a really big mess, but Dubai is doubling down on these ports. They own these ports. And so they're doubling down, and their contracts are coming, like they're for renewal, they're renewing them. And I know this because one hotel owner that owns hotels from here all the way to down to Vancouver, he told me he's looking to invest in this town, and he wants to bring another big hotel. There's never been a hotel here since for forever. And so because there's so much, the land is only so much. There's only so much land here, and only the big guys are coming. And
so based on that, is there much of an investing community? Because what we like to try to do, and I know in any market and any other investors we talk to, is you try to seek out other people that are, doing, how do I invest in Peterborough? How do I invest in Toronto? I go and find
right.
And I copy them. So are you the guy to copy in Prince Rupert, or is there anyone else doing what you're doing? I mean, you sound like you have your hands in so many different things.
I do it just for myself. Like, I know this is going to change my generational wealth just with asset inflation. That simply equals my kids are going to be good later on. I got to get just 100 houses, maybe. The goal is to own at least hundreds of houses in town. We have double digits now, but we're just starting, and we're coming super heavy. And now my friends want to get involved, and they're all locals. We went to the local high schools here. It's like when you can teach people about investing, you can raise like an army, and you can take back you can make economical sustainability. You can do it. Right?
How much does that, like growing up in town and having a relationship with the local community, how much of a role does that play in being successful there as an investor? Like, are you getting deals before they hit the market because everybody knows who you are and they know that you're buying, right?
No. I just approach people before the other person approaches them. So I'm just so far ahead of people in terms of investing. That people, like this house here, I bought like 3 years ago for like 700, but now it's 1.1, and it's only been 3 years, right? And it's like people, they don't want to take the risk.
Yeah, people
aren't willing to take risks here, so it's like I've grown up to risk.
Like pretty familiar with
I'll take the risk.
Does having a real estate portfolio now does that sort of function as your, let's say, your safer investment? And allow you
absolutely
because like when you talking about putting 150K on YOLO, like Wall Street Bets call options to fund positions, I'm like, that's awesome, and I love hearing that shit, but like that's not something that a lot of normal people are able to do, right?
Or whatever.
I lost 150 in GME, and I played AMC the way GME was. Like I was plus 600 or something in GME, and they expired worthless. And this time with AMC, I'm like, yo, I'm not doing that kind of stuff. We're out. And this time we hit it at almost the top.
Right.
So, but
I think that leads me to my next question, just about investing in general. So obviously, you're very diversified. When you say you've got friends and people in your community seeing what you're doing, being impressed, okay, with David's making moves over here, he just bought this, he bought that. When people are approaching you, what are the questions you're getting? If I say, hey man, we've been buddies for a couple of years, you're making moves, I don't really want to invest in Gamestop because I don't know anything about that kind of stuff, but I like duplexes. What are you going to tell me?
Absolutely. So
involved.
You got to, right now it's a tough market because market rents, they're up there with how much people are charging for mortgages, right? So you can start by getting a duplex and only putting down the 5%, and you don't have to touch it ever again, because from a duplex you'll be getting close to $5,000, like $4,500 off a duplex. Put the one-time payment. That's all you got to think about. It's a one-time payment, Everything else is already taken care of. Let it appreciate. Let it just boil a little. Just and then go after what it created. Don't let it get away. Go after it. That is good. That asset that is good. Get as much as that as you can, and it's like creating money out of thin air. It was not there once, and now all of a sudden it's like we're giving you cash for it. So go out and get more debt, but get good debt. And getting into the duplexes, that's a prime example, prime start. Paying people, the jobs here pay 150, 200 grand a year. These guys are happy,
Right.
but no one wants the headache.
When you mentioned and in the framework that we were, in the email thread that we had going before, not being afraid to invest prior to having a formal education. It sounds like you're in an area where there's probably a lot more unskilled labor. And when you talk about building like almost this community of investors, I imagine a lot of what you're doing is coaching people on why they shouldn't be afraid of investing. If they do, like both Nick and I,
they understand it. If they can understand what it can give you later on and what it opens up, the opportunity that it presents, then they won't, that risk gets a little bit mediated, right? It's because they're like, oh, that's actually amazing, but nobody teaches it because everyone's so like they don't teach that because they want very selfish, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, look, guys, it hasn't been working for this long. Nobody cares about our town, or nobody gives any shit about our town. It's like we got to do something, because or else like guys like myself are just gonna move to the amenities. Like I'm almost had enough here because there's nothing to do. And
so you're almost like trying to mitigate the risk of like a brain drain on a town like you're in, right? By keeping it active for people who, and I think
absolutely. And we need clinics. We need walk-in clinics. So what's stopping me from buying a building and hiring a physician and saying, can you please operate this building as a walk-in clinic? We need those things, and that they have to understand that's investing. We're investing in the education of the physician, and getting that kind of passive income off of them. And so we need more of this kind of stuff. And that's where
challenges. Like what obstructs you from doing what you just described, or getting a franchise, etc.? Is it capital? Is it like
it's right now? I have my kids full time, and and I have to manage like all the rest of like my tenants, and then I got a bunch of employees, and then it's the lawyer, the accountant, and it's like it's just my daughter's 5, my son's 21 months, and I'm 33. I'm gonna let them. They're gonna get easier. I don't have to worry about food later on for them, and my wife does everything, but it's still
very busy guy.
It's still caring for it. Like my wife does all the cooking, everything.
But you want to be present, or like you want to be like I know this because I'm a young dad as well, and my daughter's almost 5, and like I never want to miss anything, right? Like sometimes there's that for sure.
I took parental leave. I took 18 months parental leave from the one of the port jobs, and I went back for a month in April, and I quit in May. But prior to that, I took 6 months leave of absence. Prior to that, I had 10 months off when my daughter was first born. And so I've been at home with the kids for a while, and my wife went back to teaching, and so she's teaching 8 o'clock to 3:30, and my son's at home, and so sometimes we go out getting materials together, then talking to the guys, and so I'm like, I want to make my building so my kids can grow up into it. We're gonna try to make change the next 7 to 10 years. Hopefully, that's where what the long term where I'm looking at, and bring it over time, and the kids will grow up into a community like this, and it's doable. And it sucks that there's so much like homelessness here. Like it's just like a tough community.
But I love the big picture thinking and kind of that full circle thinking. I think that's where you can really take real estate to the next level, because we all own properties. That's great, but I just have civilians living in mine. I don't own any commercial stuff. But I love that idea of just, let's go back to the walk-in clinic. You've got the building, you bring the walk-in clinic in there, and that way you own the full circle.
Full circle of it.
Restaurant or a convenience store or a gas station, no matter what it is. Since this is, we've kind of jumped back and forth between all your different stuff. Let's go focus back on real estate for a second, because this is after all real estate show. Can you tell us what you currently have right now, door wise, a mix of residential, commercial, any short-term rentals? Tell us what you got now, and then tell us what you want that to look like, 2-3 years from now. What's the next phase, David?
So we have about like, we're working on 7 projects right now. Those themselves obtain to like 14 doors, but in total we're trying to get into like having dozens and dozens and dozens, and starting from what we have, we're going to trade in 4 houses and try to get a hotel, trade in something else, get a 20 apartment unit. Like I'd love to own like 1/4 of Prince Rupert by the time I'm like 50, and try to just, maybe we might not live here at that time, but we want to obtain that much generational wealth. And it's just like, we understand it a little bit more because maybe we've taken care of a lot of these people in town that other people don't understand, of how what it feels like to be a landlord to single mothers, to people that are in and out of prison. We've had it's been a nightmare in some of the housing places. Like people
Give us a nightmare tenant story. Everyone
all
loves
right, a nightmare tenant story. I had it on my Instagram page.
I actually just watched that one earlier today. Oh my God.
Yeah, that was just happened. Now the place is brand new. We fixed it and made it brand new.
Tell people a little bit about it.
So I walk in and all I see is garbage bags, and there's literally probably like 100 garbage bags worth of stuff. It cost me like $5,000 just to remove garbage and get all my stuff that I needed out of there, just because of landfill, the fees, right? Like I have to clean up my own shit and stuff. I actually threw 2x4s through the windows because the guy wouldn't stop fighting people, and the people in the front yard wouldn't stop sending me videos of him fighting. So I went there one day and I threw 2x4s in the window, and they're all brand new now. I knew I was going to replace them, but like this guy was in and out of jail. Funny story is I go to the local hospital. We just have one, and he's there handcuffed with the police. And I go to him and I just say, and the cop's standing there, and then he's like, "That's my landlord. He broke my windows. He threw glass in my kid's rice." I'm like, "You're lying. There was no kid there. The kid got taken away last year. You're just lying now." And I had to go there with like a bunch of big people. Like no one was gonna do anything, but they just looked like they were really gangster, and I wanted to make them impression. Yeah, we had to keep the people in check because there was like 8 or 10 big dudes partying in there that obviously don't belong in my house, and one by one they come out.
Okay, so if you were to take the area in which you're investing, what percentage of tenants in your municipality are like what you just described? Because like I've always invested in rougher areas. Like I've always prided myself on providing affordable housing, and I've always dealt with things like you're describing. I'm actually taking possession of a unit in a week that is about as bad as you just described, and some of the problems that I just dealt with are about as bad as what you just described. But
it's pretty bad here. I'd say at least like a quarter. At least I'd say a quarter of the tenants or tenants. Like I've had one
tough town. Let's say like you got to be tough to be a landlord there.
There's only 15,000 people here, and there's 4,600 houses, so at least half of those are owned by people, right? So it's really, really tough. Right now, there's like 10, 12 people living in 2 bedrooms because like the housing shortage right now it's so scarce, and nobody's building any new projects. We have like any project that's about to be built, we have people, other like homeowners that are trying to go against it, saying we didn't buy in a neighborhood to have a 60 unit complex over there across. And it's like, guys, we're such a small community. That's creating more jobs. We're getting more people. We need these people to come back and work at our other local restaurants too. Or it's just going to be, we're like a big village. It seems like we got to be taken care of a little bit better.
And as far as like duplexes and single families go, what's like an entry level if I want to get into the market there? How much am I looking to spend? Like, what's your average price?
I'd say like 300. It's not nothing too crazy. 300 grand will get you in a 2-3 bedroom home.
What would that rent for?
That like 2,000, 2,500 at least, something like that. 2,500.
So if somebody, and maybe
that doesn't make it worth it. That one would be like a home for yourself. You'd have to get like a duplex where you're renting it for at least like $4,000 minimum. But it's tough because back in the day when we were buying places for like 120, those places, those places now are finally starting to print. But back then they were only making maybe max $1,200. So we're not making any money. Like, in the rental business, there's barely any money being made
annually.
Yeah.
It's
not, we barely make any money on off of rentals, but it's the appreciation.
Well, and the principal pay down, right? Like it's really you're trying
absolutely, and the principal pay down. They're just, for me, it's just bank accounts, right? Like we're what inside they get ruined, this, that, we gotta put money into them. But in the end of the day, it's just a bank account. I don't want to have it in fiat currency because that's just,
And it sounds like you have the machine running properly, right? Like if you do have a turnover and the unit's been beat up, you have your contracting.
I have my contracting.
Keep your trades to work, keep your trades at work, use up excess material, etc. Right? Like it sounds like
absolutely
you got a good symbiosis going. Okay, so just to wrap up, and also like I kind of want to tie together those two things that you just mentioned. So one being you have, there's obviously opportunities if you're going to buy a duplex for $300K, maybe barely be cash positive, let's say.
Yeah, something like that you won't be, but maybe down the road, it might be worth 600 because they don't stop the printing presses. So
that not only just that, but I've also like if you're saying 25% of the housing stock or the tenants in town are as rough as you're describing, somebody's going to want a person like yourself probably to manage properties in that municipality. Like if I was going to go invest in your municipality, I would not want to manage that myself. It just sounds like there's too much risk. So if
it's tough.
a lot of our listeners are investors who are looking for, especially like I would say when COVID first started, I was one of the people leading the thesis around investing in small towns, right? And so if somebody wants to invest in your municipality, and would you recommend they reach out to you, or should they call a local realtor, or like?
I mean, if they're thinking about doing commerce, definitely, I'm interested in that. Right. But for real estate wise, not really. I don't run a brokerage or anything like that. We just buy my own houses here. I have my own people that work. I'm gonna get we're gonna be ordering dump trucks and backhoes, and we're gonna do everything ourselves now. It's like we can do that. So
I think what Dan's getting at is I think there's a big push now, and I can speak to this because I'm minimum an hour and a half away from my closest investment property. I'm 4 hours away from the rest of my portfolio. That's because I live in the GTA, and it's $1 million to even go look at something. Like it's ridiculous, and none of that stuff cash flows, right? Now, obviously, you can find off market stuff, but Dan and I are both big proponents of the secondary and tertiary markets, which you would fall into, which obviously have rougher tenants. Right. But for instance, I've got a $100,000 renovation going on 4 hours away, and I've got the contractor that I have trust with sending me pictures. I've got a realtor up there that can go by and take a look at it, etc. Right, so if I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, well, I've got 50 grand to spend.
Yeah, that partnership, that's ventures. Those are ventures.
David, can I just?
Those are absolutely. Those are all the ventures I want to take. Create a holding company. Boom, you get a project and everything goes through that. Boom, that's another venture. That's just one hand, and now I extend my other hand and keep going. Right. That's exactly what I'm getting towards. Right now, my commercial building is just getting started to be renovated, and so once everything gets going, and my kids get a little bit in a year or so they get a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And my wife, she's finished she's finishing in June, and she's probably gonna be off for like a few years or whatever after that. So it gets easier. And so 100% that's what I want to do. And that's where my venturing company is.
So your goal would be to attract like almost
absolutely
out-of-town investment into
exactly.
So if we can, just to keep it, and be mindful of your time, obviously, if people are interested in doing that, and maybe if you're not ready for it, if they're not ready for it right now, where should they follow you? Where should they interact with you?
I'm showing everything on my Instagram page. It's kind of neat. It goes from betting sports, a lot of betting sports, to the real estate aspect of it. But if tilt_ventures, give me a follow or a message, and we can have a chat. Like if they're interested in bringing a Boston pizza and we venture off. I got myself and another guy that wants to do it. Let's get a Moxie's boxing pizza because
I think
we got so much money here.
Jim Treliving from Dragon's Den, the owner, but he's a big listener, a big fan of ours, isn't he? So
Yeah,
hopefully
maybe
he
so.
hears this episode.
Yeah.
Jim, we need the other Jimmy. Jimmy Patterson owns so much real
Oh,
estate
Jim
here.
Patterson, yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah,
And up there.
That guy owns half of Canada.
He's because of the waterfront here. So
Right.
there's only so much waterfront, and that's all for when the fishing industry was huge. He used to make millions. He made so much money from this town, but it's like, Jimmy, come on, loan me some land.
Yeah.
Jimmy, he's got the best land. Jimmy, where you at?
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, man. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, it was great chatting with you guys, and I look forward to the next one. Maybe there's going to be lots of moving parts over here.
Yeah, maybe when we're out in BC, or if Nick ever goes to visit visit the home front,
absolutely
we'll visit and see some of your projects and actually do some nice in-person YouTube content. We'd love that.
Yeah,
100%. I was thinking of getting into YouTube and monetizing it that way, showing bets and showing the real estate and getting how to get a franchise, like, because this is all going to happen, and I'm doing it all. So why not try to just YouTube it?
Honestly, and I think with just in a closing statement, we've really just, I mean, Dan's been doing it for years. I'm just starting to kind of push that side of things as well. It's huge, man. People love that. It's demystifying the kind of stuff that we do, right? So, and you're doing a whole bunch of cool stuff. I think people are going to want to see more of it. On that note, probably wrap it up. Before that, though, next time you're going to invest in a stock and make $1 million, give us a little tip. We'll edit that out.
Absolutely.
I don't even think that has anything to do with like information that you had. I think that was just pure balls.
So in January I YOLO'd $70 AMC calls, but in January, and it hit, and they went like some of mine went positive 7,400%. They were like, I had close to it was pretty crazy, but I only knew this because when the time off I've had with my kids, the 18 months off, I just dove headfirst, lost so much money into stocks, like just because I like to be a little risky.
Well, I mean, if you play poker as an income source, I think like you're obviously comfortable with risk, and I think
absolutely, and betting is a crazy story. My wife doesn't know this, but last year we had the most we had on a game was like 6 figures on a 10 a.m. Cowboys game, and we won. So, but like stuff like that, it gets crazy. And so that's where last year my wife had to leave the house with my kids because it got crazy. Because just like the ups and downs of volatility, the tilt, it was out there. And so now we're going to create the office, and that's going to have all my TVs where I do all my betting, and my friends, they love it. And other people are asking me, oh, how do I do it? How can I get into it? I'm like, guys, I'll tell you all of that. It's great. It's all net, and it's an income source.
Yeah, love it. Okay, well, that's wise words from David, who's got his hands in just about everything. David, thank